Hello friends, my name is Lori Beth. I'm a healthcare worker, a physical therapist, a wife, and a mother-to-be. I am the daughter of a veteran, the granddaughter of a veteran, and the great-granddaughter of a veteran. I'm a proud supporter of the armed forces and everyone who works to defend our country, my life, liberty, and freedom. There are always many things to complain about, but we should take time to express gratitude, and I stand proud for the men and women in uniform and those who have served this United States of America. We may all have our political views, but they should never interfere with our gratitude for what the men and women of the armed forces have sacrificed in service of our country. It is in this that I need to make a statement, a plea. You've probably heard someone on television or in an advertisement offering assistance to anyone wronged in X and Y lawsuits or in some type of medication that's gone awry. I've probably heard hundreds of times of a lawyer requesting a call if you or a loved one has suffered from certain conditions and promising fat cash if you just give them a call. There have been times where I have been wronged, and I have, even out of curiosity, made a call. And sadly, most of the time, the help is really not there. Unfortunately, I, my family, and hundreds to thousands more have been heavily affected by the topic that I need to cover today. As I have already stated, I am the daughter and granddaughter of a veteran. My father probably bleeds camo. And of course, my grandfathers, once a Marine, always a Marine. That being said, like many other Marines, my grandfather was stationed at Camp LeJeune. I do not know the exact dates, I do not have the exact address, but I do know that they were there from at least 1961 until 1968, and that my mother, therefore, was there for 7 years of her youth and for the time she spent in utero. My mother's mother is deceased, and she passed at a young age of 63 years old. My mom is one of 4 remaining siblings, originally 6. Her older brother passed away many years ago, sadly far too young for his age. Of the individuals in my mom's family, everyone has been highly impacted by the effects of drinking toxic water offered with no warning signs to them at the Marine base in Camp Lejeune. More than 6 decades later, I am tasked with finding my mother help for wounds that were invisible for the overwhelming majority of her life. My grandfather, an amazing man in true wild and wonderful West Virginian, is still living. Who would have thought that drinking beer and not water might have saved his life? I do understand that many people who have lived at Camp Lejeune have not had the consequences outlined in the Camp Lejeune toxic water case. And if I can urge anything, I do not ever encourage dishonesty and manipulation for self-reward. There are a lot of families truly hurting, truly suffering, and in desperate need of help. Every single dishonest claim is theft to the country, a lie to yourself, and a terrible way to make ends meet. And it keeps people that need help from getting help. I do need to briefly make a tangent before this sounds like a plea for economic reimbursement to say that after more than 60 years of hiding behind the known truth, what is the fix? After all of this, with some and now many officials knowing that something was wrong, what is the fix for families of those who were raised for more than 7 years on toxic sludge? How is it okay for HIPAA to block me from providing assistance and getting my mom the help that she needs when she has already gone so long without help, without understanding, and with invisible but very serious damage that has affected every single aspect of her life? It's difficult to prove the association. How does one make note of mood, memory, cognition, behavior in your own mother? Especially in a family that has been taught to be hard, to stay relentless, and to serve the country without question or need. It has taken a very long time to understand that the erratic behavior that separated me from my mother my entire life came from something that was known as a danger and a threat. Without persistent requests, calls, and an enormous amount of time and countless denials, my mom is still without assistance and with complications that are no longer invisible. Has the VA at least found treatment for people with neurobehavioral complications? More than 100,000 claims have been made, but what should we be doing to prevent further demise? What can we do to help people from getting worse? Treatments are often found for conditions all the time, and for 60 years there have been victims of drinking toxic chemicals in the water. I am well aware that some studies have been conducted despite the limitations of studies and with so many confounding limitations. I've seen many summaries listing the complications of such late and limited research, especially for conditions like anxiety, nervousness, mood behaviors, depression, insomnia, memory problems, Alzheimer's, etc. Parkinson's, for example, is one of the most studied cases in Camp Lejeune in their literature, and it is one of the newest additions to their claims. At the same time, it is not an easy condition to receive a confident and formal diagnosis, especially for many who do wait until symptoms are severe before they ask for help. because this is common. Just because hospitals are busy, it does not mean they are seeing or fixing a lot of the underlying issues that patients present with. Many patients wait until it's impossible to self-manage before attempting to get any form of assistance. I think this is a terrible strategy, but we have to be honest in understanding why so many people take this approach. It's not until someone is suffering that the medical system is even set up to help them. When you include factors like HIPAA and a history of not seeking medical care, when a patient gets to the point of no return, who's supposed to help them? And how is that supposed to happen? By nature of my mom's disability, she's not able to prove her identity. Therefore, assisting her with her taxes, disability, medical assistance, and provision of care in an uphill battle that can only be fought by someone with time, some level of medical and or legal understanding, and more patience than a saint.
What year is it?
It's July. I would say probably the 16th or 17th of the month.
What year is it?
July.
I can't begin to explain the cost that this has come on my mom's life, her relationships, our family. It's come at a cost of everything to her. My mom has always loved people. She has always loved to be popular, to have a lot of friends, and to look her best. She's always been great with dates, directions, and anything related to her friends. We moved growing up. Every single year or two, we would have to change stations. So we were moving locations, and every place we ever lived, my mom would have so many friends. She had more friends than a small town phone book. But now she lives in isolation, afraid to leave her room, hearing voices, afraid of herself, talking to herself, unable to complete basic self-care without my help, unable to complete much of anything without assistance. Within the last 5 years of her life, she has stopped enjoying things. Her life has become very small. I don't want to say anything that compromises her dignity. Her concern for her dignity does fluctuate a lot these days, but nonetheless, she deserves all the dignity of a queen in my eyes. She once loved to travel and exercise. She's not able to leave her room without getting lost. She's afraid to go to meals because she does not know how to get back home. She doesn't know where to put her clothes, so she throws them away. She doesn't know the difference between her voice, mine, and the untrue thoughts that occupy her mind 24/7. These thoughts trump the voices she once knew to be true. She needs not only 24/7 help, but help that is patient, understanding, and kind. She needs help to be social and to not become aggressive due to her confusion. The friends she once held dear, she now fears. Her thoughts tell her that they are dangerous, that I, her daughter, that I'm dangerous. Her thoughts do not know where to put her clothes, so she throws them away. She doesn't know how to take a shower or use the shower, so she doesn't without help. She doesn't know much about time, so the difference of when she did or didn't brush her teeth is uncertain. If she brushes her teeth for 3 seconds or 3 minutes, she doesn't know. She doesn't know the year, the state, or who she is anymore. She and we are desperate for help, real help. What meds are working for these people? Thousands and thousands of residents with symptoms. What is working? What do we need to do to get help? What do we need to do for answers? Who will help? Who will even speak to people like me that are desperate? I don't want my mom to get any worse. And yes, we do need financial assistance. How does someone like my mom, who all of her relationships have been severed by her condition, she needs my assistance. I need to work. How can I work to help her and have time to help her while getting her set up for these things and begging for help from Camp LeJeune family member program? Of these 100,000 people, what is working to prevent their demise after all of these years? Has there been a treatment implemented? Yes, people need financial assistance because the circumstances make it very difficult to impossible to work. My mom definitely had to retire young, definitely has not been able to work as she should have been able to had she not been exposed to toxic water the first 7 years of her life. What can we do? Is there any way to keep it from getting worse? For those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar or maybe are concerned that this might be something worth you looking into, family members that have been affected by the Camp LeJeune toxic water were drinking contaminated water with volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs. This includes TCE, or trichloroethylene, which is a metal degreaser, PCE, or perchloroethylene, which is a dry cleaning solvent, benzene, which is something that is found in your fuel, vinyl chloride, which is used to make plastics. These chemicals are known neurotoxins and carcinogens. Long-term exposure is linked to a lot of serious health outcomes. They are linked to a number of serious health outcomes. I would like to add, since I have already mentioned, because I know not every resident has suffered in this way, and that many have come and gone relatively unscathed from this contamination. But my mother was a resident of one of the 2 neighborhoods that were most heavily affected by the toxic water. I feel like many people are desperate for answers, and I'm happy to share what I have learned if I can help anyone like me in hope for answers. The 2 most heavily affected neighborhoods were Tarawa Terrace System. Tarawa Terrace was a family housing neighborhood, and Knox Trailer Park was also supplied by this water system. The primary contaminant in this water was PCE, which is a dry cleaning solvent. The concentrations reached up to 215 ppb. This vastly exceeds what is considered the safe limit of 5 ppb, that is exceeding by 210. The operation dates state that this water was in operation from 1952. When the contaminated wells were finally shut down wasn't until February of 1985. The other major water system was the Hadnot Point water system, which served the main side barracks, the hospital point housing, and family housing in Midway Park, Paradise Point, and Berkeley Manor. This water system was in service until 1972. The primary contaminant in this neighborhood was TCE, or trichloroethylene, with a peak of 1,400 of that TCE trichloroethylene. 1,400. Again, the safe limit is 5 ppb. Contamination traced to on-base leaks and waste disposal. This was known by people on base that were higher ups, apparently, from what I've read in the literature. The water wells were not closed until February of 1985. There was also spillover to Holcomb Boulevard, but this system wasn't generally contaminated. The two most affected neighborhoods were Tarawa Terrace and Knox Trailer Park. Hadnot Point was the second most affected water supply source. And these different areas had the highest levels of contamination when studied, while not consistently studied over the years. The most accurate information is not available, and the level of impact is also going to have to do with timing, how meals were prepared, how people showered and bathed. And mind you, back in the day, a lot of people were drinking right out of the hose, right outside, and my mom was one of these kids, just like so many others. My mother's diagnosis falls under the umbrella of neurobehavioral disorders, which is a broad umbrella term that encompasses several conditions involving impairments in cognitive function, mood, behavior, and motor skills due to dysfunction in the nervous system, especially in the brain. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or the VA, and the Agency of Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, or the ATSDR, do recognize that exposure at Camp LeJeune is associated with an increased risk of developing neurobehavioral effects. Neurobehavioral disorders that are associated with Camp LeJeune include Parkinson's disease, which is strongly associated to TCE exposure, cognitive impairments including memory loss, attention deficit disorders, executive dysfunctioning, anxiety disorders including general anxiety, panic attacks, and a relationship to the chemical impacts of these substances on neurotransmitter function, depression, persistent sadness, and lack of motivation, which also overlaps with the cognitive decline associated with this exposure. Mood disorders to include bipolar and mood instability, dementia or early onset Alzheimer's-like symptoms. Some exposed individuals even report early or more rapid cognitive decline. And these symptoms, please note as I'm saying them, how difficult they might be to prove, to provide associations to link to something 60 years old. And Alzheimer's, when your parents start to forget things, even basic things, one, there's a huge sense of denial. But who is a child to say to their parent, no matter if that relationship has never been very healthy, who is the child to say to the parent that something's wrong with your mind? And I know that there comes a time where this has to be said, but if anyone has been in this situation, it is not easy to do. And there can be different circumstances and situations that make it easier, like experience and communication. Sometimes it's just so abundantly obvious. I feel like it helps to say, hey, this is happening. I think maybe you would benefit from getting some help. But these are not easy conditions to discuss with a family member of any sort, in my opinion. It can be a child, a spouse, a significant other, a friend. These are not easy to say, hey, you're not very smart and you're in a bad mood all the time and you're very depressed. This is something that the patient kind of has to come to themselves. And I will tell you from my experience that it takes a lot for someone to want to request help. And I can only speak for my mom. In her case study, in her particular situation, in her case, she tends to make humor out of anytime she doesn't know something. So if it's cognitive or memory, she'll just try to make fun of it. But when you lose the ability to even come up with a joke or be funny, you don't remember the things that you know how to say to cover your own tracks. Often the situation has to get really bad before help can get involved. And then once you're at a point that help can get involved, now the person can't prove their own identity and HIPAA blocks you from getting help. And if the patient never consistently got medical attention, there's no track record to prove their problems, the entire system is set up against people getting help. And then it takes months, where months is all that it takes to have insurance denials, bills, thousands upon thousands of dollars. What are families supposed to do? And why is it so difficult for people that truly have issues to get help? Why is it so hard and why does it take so much time? Because then the family members helping them lose their jobs. They lose their life in care of the person who's lost their life for something so simple that could have been simple, especially knowing that people knew. I digress. Dementia, motor problems to include tremors, coordination issues, gait disturbances, learning disabilities, developmental delays, especially for those who were children exposed in utero, sleeping disorders to include insomnia and fragmented sleeping patterns. The neurological impact is limitless. People will suffer from peripheral neuropathy, numbness, tingling, burning in their hands and feet. These are just some of the symptoms that are noted as common conditions associated with the neurobehavioral effects, which is only one of the classification sources in the Camp LeJeune Family Member Program claims. It's important to consider if you believe that you are affected, and I'm saying this in help of other families and patients suffering and desperate for answers, caregivers of their parents and such. Neurobehavioral effects is a compensable condition for veterans and their family members who have been exposed at Camp LeJeune. Though the term is very vague, advocacy groups have pushed for greater clarity and an expanded list of covered conditions. As of now, neurobehavioral effects is not even one of the 8 presumptive conditions in the 2022 Camp LeJeune Justice Act, but they are often included in claims and medical evaluations. Neurobehavioral disorders linked to Camp LeJeune includes a spectrum of neurological, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral symptoms. These do stem from exposure to TCE, PCE, benzene, and vinyl chloride. Parkinson's has some of the strongest documented links, with many affected individuals reporting of a combination of symptoms that affect their daily function, mood, memory, and coordination. I know I sound scripted. I am scripted. I just really don't want to forget any of the important things I have to say. And this is a very emotional journey. I think if I were to just go for it, I probably would end up in uncontrollable tears. If you have ever known my mother, or if you've known anyone that was once much, much different than they are today, to find out that someone knew that they were drinking toxic water and let that go on for decades. And then because the symptoms were not visible, you wait until you can prove that there's a problem before you can even ask for help. I feel like she's declining so quickly and I am desperate. This part is not scripted, but again, it's important to me to preserve my mom's integrity. She is a prideful woman and I don't think that's a bad thing. Most people want to take care of themselves. They care about their identity. They care about how they are portrayed. And I'm not sure how much of this has to do with my mom's isolation because when I go visit her, she wants me to paint her nails. She wants new clothes every single time I go to see her. She wants a brand new dress because she has no understanding of time. She thinks everything that she already owns is old, even though everything she's had for more than the smallest amount of time ever has been thrown away. I have to replace her underwear all the time, her dresses all the time. Her style is changing. Her weight is changing. She is not herself. And I don't want to say too much because I want to make sure I'm honoring her in this. But it's a shame because so much of my mother's personality and character is so beautiful. But she has always had bipolar. She has always had anxiety. She has always had mood complications. She has always had issues with her cognition and her memory. But how does someone prove these things? And how do you prove that it's associated to water you drank? For what it's worth, my mom could not even tell me she was born at Camp LeJeune. There were years of her life she would tell me she was, and years of her life she would tell me she was born in West Virginia. But for the last few years, she doesn't know what year it is, what state she's in, where she lives, and why she's there. And I think there's a combination of factors to include because she married into a military family. Her husband, my father, was in the military his entire career, that we moved so often that the instability is also familiar to her. And it's so important to me to not say anything that would not bring her honor, but she is not living the life she wants to live. And you hear so many people talk about animals that belong in the wild and they deserve to be free. Well, my mom could possibly be free, but she doesn't want to do anything or go anywhere because she is so afraid of everything and she doesn't know where she's at or who she's with. And I cannot keep my eyes on her 24/7. And it has heavily and negatively impacted literally every aspect of her life and mine. And I do wish we had been closer, but I also wish I could go back in time and have known. The system truly is set up in a way that's difficult to find help. It is a lot easier to fight for something when you're healthy than when you truly are disabled. But my mom can't fight for herself. Someone has to fight for her. If you know how to get answers and if you know how to get help, please let me know or forward this to someone who it might benefit, other people that are feeling alone, hopeless, helpless. I do know that if you feel like you've been impacted, to contact Camp LeJeune Family Member Program. If you do know of other resources, or if your family member has had neurobehavioral effects of toxic water from Camp LeJeune, what has worked? Because so far nothing has really helped, and I don't feel like the medications that they are putting my mother on are helping her right now. I know they're trying, but it just seems to not be the best thing. So what are people taking or using that seems to really be making the biggest difference? I don't know what that is or what I should be recommending or who I should have my mother seeing, but she isn't very good at traveling. She's not very good at sitting in appointments. She does get combative and can get aggressive. For the longest time of this current situation, she's really been close and sweet to me, but most of my life she's not been that way to me, and that's been returning lately, which makes it even more difficult to provide her care and assistance, especially now that I am a mother-to-be. And I know that I need to find help quick because soon my hands will be tied more than they are now. And I truly am desperate. If you all have resources, please link them below. I will link the information to Camp LeJeune below. You can file an application, and there are more conditions. In fact, my mother does have other conditions from her residency there, but this is the one that is by far most impacting her health, happiness, and condition, and has led her dependent of 24/7 care. Thank you, and I'm so sorry for everyone that has been affected like this, or how my mother has been to you and to your family, to your loved ones, everyone around you, because I totally understand how much this has stolen from your life, and that there's no amount of money that can fix that, but some money is needed to care for you and to maintain as much health and happiness as can be after all of these years that have been stolen. I just don't really have the words, and I found as many as I could find. But again, if you have any resources that can help people like me, not just me, but anyone that might see this, please put them in the comment section below. Share this to someone who it might benefit. And no, I'm not looking for any legal battle. I just want my mom to get the financial, medical, health assistance that she needs and deserves. I want her to have some quality of life, health, and freedom. And of course, I want that for her caregivers and those around her. She has lost a lot over this, and I just don't want her to lose anymore. Thank you so much. God bless, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye. What state are we in?
West Virginia. No,
We just did this too at the doctor.
yeah, I can't remember, honey.
We just said it. What state are we in? Tell me what you just said.
West Virginia.